Mall. I'm the pottery teacher here at Quail Kilns in Murphys, California. What I teach my students here in beginning wheel throwing is to make a 2-pound cylinder. So watch me step by step. So we have 2 pounds of clay that I just wedged. Notice it's in a cone shape. The bottom has all these spirals, and that's the widest part. That's going to go directly on your bat. So what you want to do is you want to compress that clay into a pear shape. And what we're doing is we're getting rid of all the crevices that were in the wedge. So I tell people it's a pear. You're going to find the center of your bat, and you want to just throw that down. We're going to move the wheel at a slower pace, open-handed, and we're just going to pat the clay into the bat, getting it compressed down. And then we'll take our index and middle finger and seal it. And notice my elbow is always in my body and my fingers land at 3 o'clock. It's really important that you keep that stability there when you're throwing clay. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to compress the clay down and then cone it back up. My left hand is the stabilizer and my elbow is stabilized by my leg. So if you'll notice, I can push my leg in, which then touches the clay, and notice only this part of the clay is touching, this part of the hand is touching the clay. So I'm going to compress it down, and we increase the speed. I always say speed is your friend when you're centering. We're going to push on the side with our right hand, and then when it cones up in the middle, we'll go ahead and push it back down. And a gentle squeeze with the water, not too much. You don't want to flood your wheel. Now I'm going to take this hand, again with that leg, and I'm going to go right down at the bat at 7 o'clock, and I'm going to push in, and you'll notice I'm only working from my leg versus my upper body. My upper body is stabilizing, but I'm not having to work those muscles that were not really as strong as some people. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm coning up and compressing down, and I'm just going to make a cylinder. And so if you'll notice, how do we know if it's centered? If it looks like it's standing still when it's going around. I like to clean the bat off where it connects to the clay. And now we're ready for the next step, which is opening up the clay. We'll put a little bit of water. Our stabilizer is in hand, and we're going to press down in the middle, and we're going to go down about halfway. And then curl that middle finger just to slightly open up the center. Stop the wheel, and you're going to take your needle and push it down, slide your finger all the way down to where it touches the clay and pull it out, and you can see how thick your floor is. And we're going to go about, a little more than 1/4 inch, maybe between 1/4 and 1/2. So go down a little bit more, open it up, and you've collected some water, so we're going to get that water out. Notice the wheel's still moving, I just push the sponge in. And now we'll test the floor again. And it's still a little bit thick, so I'm going to go down a little bit more, and then we'll open it up. And I'll do that all in one step. So I'm going to push down, bend my knuckle, my middle finger, and then I'm going to pull towards my belly button with level fingers. Level meaning straight up and down. Now what we want to do is compress the floor. And I like to use my middle finger, and it's just using the fatty part, and I'm compressing at 3 o'clock, slowly going into the center. And a lot of times there's a little dollop, a little mound in there, and you get underneath that and get that clay out. And now you want to compress it maybe 2 or 3 times just to make sure that clay is really solid down on the bottom. And then we're going to pull it. And I actually have 2 different pulls that I do. One is called a push, and I work at 6 o'clock, and I can get pretty high with a push. So my finger's inside, thumb is outside touching the bat, opposite that middle finger. Both elbows are planted in my body. I'm going to push down at the bat, create a little indentation, and then I'm going to slowly come all the way up. So pushing up, in, coming up, and then it's very important that you lean forward more than you were. Come all the way up, get to the top, slowly relax your hands, and give it a nice compression on top. So that's one pull. In the beginner world, sometimes we're lucky to get that high. So we're going to go now at our typical 3 o'clock pull. And again, inside hand is touching the outside hand. Middle finger is my pusher, my strength. So I'm going to push all the way down at the bottom of the bat, bottom of the clay, create a little bump, and then we're going to slowly keep that pressure on the outside and slowly come up together. My inside fingers are a little bit higher than the outside fingers. Notice how the wheel's slowing down. Come all the way up to that edge, relax. Make sure this is in a round shape, and then you release and compress the lip. One of the things that happened on this pull is I actually went out, and that happens if we're not as centered as we could be. So I'm going to go ahead and squeeze that back in, come right up to the top, and I'll do one more pull. And you can use your sponge or your fingers. When I use a lot of clay, 5 pound, 6 pound, whatever, I like to use a sponge more, and that first pull I like to do. So now I'm just using my fingers, and you want to feel the clay and the tension between your fingers as you're coming up the wall. We'll come all the way up. I'm lightening up on the top. I typically push too hard and then it's thinner, so I'm wanting that to not break through. And now what I'm going to do is clean the inside out, make sure there's no water. So you're going to trim the bottom out, and you can take a metal rib or a plastic rib and take all the slip off. You have a beautiful cylinder that you can create anything you want. Thanks for watching.